What's up, night crawlers? Welcome back to the Nightmare's Edge. Thanks for dropping in. Now, without any further ado, please sit back, relax, and let me tickle those inner fears. I can't tell if you guys are cold as ice or just looking out for me, but wow, leave the guy? Honestly though, probably the best decision. I was debating on telling you this, but hey, who else can I trust? I wasn't completely honest with you guys in my last post. I did really hope that that guy could take care of this problem, but I had some other feelings about the situation. I don't know why, but watching him get hurt made me giddy, energized, and I have no idea why. Was I a sick bastard before this? Something from my creator? Something else? No idea, but it makes me want to remind folks, essentially I'm a sentient weapon. And I'm somewhat scared I have less control over my actions than I think. Another major development, it's 2020? I know I should have picked up on this earlier, but I typed this stuff randomly late at night, using every sense I have to avoid getting caught. I knew I missed some time, but I was thinking we were in the late 90s by the startup BIOS information in the computer. But 2020? I don't have memories about the guy I was made from, but I do have knowledge of basic world facts and a handful of trivia. This all ends about 93. I have no clue if this means anything, but why such a long gap? Other than the errata, I'll tell you how my little trip outside the home went. If you're pressed for time, the Cliff Notes version is, it was odd. For everyone wondering about the hero, he's still alive, barely. I spent a couple days trying to write a note or something to slip to him, but God, these hands I have are not made for detail work. Illegible doesn't begin to describe the scrawl I made. So I decided it was time for a little trip outside the house. Some of you had a few good ideas for immediate equipment till I could get the trunk open, and the first step in doing that is a little recon of the area. Luckily, there's an easy way to the roof from the attic, so getting out didn't require too much effort. Getting down was a bit harder, but the old lattice on the back wall held my weight with only minor protest. Looking around though, wow, I'm going to have to explain. My creator has cut corners making me, but has put in enough safeguards to at least make sure I get a chance to get my mission, twisted as it may be, done. What I saw when I looked around were large swaths of my vision taken up, with what looked like massive black infinitely expanding stalactites, stalagmites, and webs of all shapes and sizes, blocking streets, houses, and even just random paths. A competent creator would have been able to give me various extra senses or organs to make sure I wasn't seen or captured. Mine chose a quicker and dirtier route. Those voids represent the lines of sight and hearing of things likely to take umbrage at a sentient doll. They pulse and shift, showing whatever spell is driving them is not very exact, and I physically cannot cross them. I see a moderately clear path to a home I can actually see and decide to make my way there. I make my way there in a series of jerking, non-ergonomic movements, avoiding thin webs of void by ducking, twisting, and contorting myself in ways no human could. As I look into the distance, I notice more and more void until the horizon is just a Vanta black sheet. I'm guessing I have a maximum range of some form. I take a moment to think about how disturbing my movement would look should anyone be able to see me. Not that I'd make a very comforting sight walking in any fashion. I easily climb the fence leading into the backyard. I hear no one in the home and I start to crawl my way up to the garage, hoping to find some tools or a firearm I could take back to begin a stockpile. I must have been too concerned with wedging my way between the lines of sight, as I only noticed the heavy breathing once it was 25 feet away from me. A thick-built bulldog, easily matching my 90 pounds, standing there growling. I have no time to think about the situation as it charges me. I force myself through the void webs as fast as I can, the dog inches behind me, and I almost make it to the fence before it clamps its massive wizard sleeve of a face onto my leg. No meeting there, thankfully. And for all her faults, the creator did give me enough reinforcement to deal with something like this. That being said, leverage, momentum, and I'm guessing steroids are letting it toss me around like a, no pun intended, ragdoll. Intentionally or not, it starts to slam me against the fence. That hurts in a hurry. I feel the shock in all the fleshy parts of me as I'm slammed over and over again into the solid wood. Animal lovers, skip ahead a couple paragraphs. I try and get one of my blades out, but find out they must be more mechanical than mystical. As I get slammed into the wall, the mechanism that retracts them keeps engaging, making them next to useless. So instead, I go caveman, no tools, no mercy. I reach out and sink my ceramic fingers deep into the dog's eye. They might not be made for calligraphy, but they do this kind of work just fine. My momentum tears the eye from its socket and the dog howls in pain, launching me in a high arc over the fence, followed by a thin spray of dog blood and ocular fluid. The void webs hit me as hard as any real obstacle, and I go on a spinning, erratic path, bouncing and tumbling as I land. I try to stop myself, but I'm in a supremely uncontrollable landing, going down a hill judging by the fact that I seem to be gaining speed instead of losing it. I can't get my bearings until I slam to an instant stop against a massive tree. I'm physically fine, but I have no idea where the hell I ended up, besides quite a ways into a scraggly forest. I look around, trying to find a way back to my attic, but between the trees and the void webs, I can see just about nothing past the tree line. I attempt a series of frustrated cursing. It's expressed as a series of gurgles, growls, and clicking noises. I pick a direction and begin to walk, figuring, even at my stature, this forest can't be that expansive. The branches and litter are thankfully less of a pain in the ass than the void webs, but being 3 foot something and mostly head doesn't make for an easy time navigating undergrowth. I hear something in the distance, muffled noises, leaves rustling, branches breaking. My original idea is that I found a couple of folks engaged in a semi-public tryst. Thinking to follow them out after their congress, I make my way towards the sound. What I saw was most certainly not folks getting ready to bang. 2 sentient things stand in front of me after a few minutes of walking toward the noises. One is a rather nondescript man, mid-20s, curly hair, and trying his best to scream while being held by the face by a second entity. It stood 9 feet tall, lanky, pale, with clear red claws that would give hunting knives feelings of inadequacy. Its face looks long and featureless at first, but as I look close, its features are just moved significantly low on its face. Eyes starting where a mouth would be, and a thin, massive set of lips starting right below its neck. It wore a torn and faded brown suit that covered maybe half down its limbs and left vast swaths of its pale flesh exposed. As it moved, it appeared to leave smoke trails, but instead of dissipating, it fell, snow-like, to the ground. For some reason, it reminded me of cotton candy.
The hell?
It says in a suitably dark and breathless voice. Its head turns 180 degrees to face me.
For the love of... Are you a golem or a homunculus?
It asks. I fall to the ground doing a perfect imitation of a normal doll, albeit too late.
What? I just watched you do that. I know you're alive.
I stay still for another couple moments, bluffing.
For the record, I'm embarrassed for you.
He finishes. I give in and stand up, brushing myself off.
Golem, I think.
I say, walking over. The man the massive creature is holding starts to scream louder as he sees me enter the already fatal situation.
You think? What kind of answer is that? Is there a chunk of flesh in there? And if so, is it human?
He seemed a little annoyed, but not aggressive. Something hits me.
How did you understand me?
I say, accidentally avoiding his question.
How did I not? You have a bit of a construct accent, but it's English. Seriously though, you have some human chunks in there. Kind of time sensitive here.
He says, gesturing to the man he is holding.
Yeah, brain, eyes, some muscles, about 90 pounds worth.
I say tentatively.
For Christ's sake. Well, first off, that makes you homunculus, not a golem. Which makes what I'm doing here just fucking useless.
The elongated creature puts the man down.
Okay, buddy. You're probably the luckiest person on Earth. You see that little guy? He's just made eating you useless to me. I could kill you, but honestly, it's a time waster at this point. so I'm letting you go. Now if you get any cute ideas about telling folks about this, or coming after me, I want to show you something that will make you think twice before taking that course of action.
At this point, the suit-wearing thing grabs the man's arm and twists. The bones splinter and pop out at random angles in a burst of fat and blood. The man screams for a second before the creature puts his face inches from his, silencing him by placing one razor-sharp crystalline claw on the man's lips.
You humans have short memories, and chances are after a few months you'd have done something stupid. But remember how this felt, how easily I broke you. But more importantly, after you eat this.
The creature produces an old-looking hard candy in a red and green wrapper.
And your flesh knits itself better than any surgeon could. Remember, that is the least of my power. I don't need to rend you. I could tear your body and soul apart from across the fucking world if you piss me off. Now, run.
It finishes, roughly shoving the man away. The man doesn't look back, and within a few seconds is lost within the forest.
So what brings you out here ruining my dinner? Name's Kaz, by the way.
The creature says, taking a seat on a fallen tree. I know this might not have been the smartest thing to do, but I told him the entire story. As much as I physically could, anyway. He could probably destroy me if he wanted to, and didn't seem too desperate for details, so I figured I could trust him.
Okay. And after all that, your plan is to try and, what? Be some kind of nice guy? Why?
Kaz says, amused and shaking his head.
Why not?
I say as a choking cough.
The fact you literally run on killing innocent folk? See, if you were a golem, you could screw off. Go set up a donut shop in Alaska with the right plan. But you've been given a little more energy than your job requires. But after that, barring some maintenance, you burn out if you don't get some notches on your blade. And in your case, they need to be innocent, and preferably kids.
Kaz lights up a cigarette.
Which is ironic considering the dumbass legend centering around my breed.
I'll cross that bridge when I come to it. Besides stature, nothing's stopping me from taking out those things in my house.
I say with unearned confidence.
Someone must have been listening to a podcast when they made you, weren't they? I have no love for malignants, though. That's the big thing that priest is bringing in. What is he? God? No idea. Probably just some try-hard human who is fucking around with the void. But if he thinks he's going to control those things forever, he's an idiot. I don't want to get involved, but I have some advice. The guy in the basement, we call them heroes. They are mysterious, but they tend to have just a little touch of the void themselves. Explains the leg of his, probably made it himself. You want to buff up? Kill him, and kill him slow. And this meeting place for our kind, the flea market. If you can't find something there for pest removal, you didn't bring enough to trade.
He gives me a gold card with an address on it.
Can I ask you for one last favor? A ride home, for lack of a better term?
I say, raising my hands like a toddler. He sighs as he picks me up. We both remain silent as he drops me into the backyard of the house I'm tethered to for the next decade. A quick climb and I'm back into the attic doing my best to remove the dirt, blood, and debris from my clothing. I barely get 5 minutes before I hear the screams of multiple people from the basement. I'm beginning to know every twist and turn of the vents, and am down, silently, and quickly enough to see the giant malignant drag 2 people into the room, where the hero is still tied to the chair, clinging to life. The bishop follows close behind, a massive rotten-toothed grin spreading on his face.
You thought I wouldn't go looking for your backup, kid?
The bishop says, shaking his head. The 2 people look to be in their mid-20s, twin buff guys dressed in camo pants and black shirts. They are badly beaten, but still alive.
We're sorry, man. He came up out of nowhere.
The one on the left says to the hero. The bishop cracks one of his tentacles like a whip, and a massive strip of flesh is flensed from the chest of the twin that spoke.
I'd say, shut up and I'd make this easier. But I won't. Talk again, and I go after that mother of yours and Hammersmith you think is safe. Choir boy, you've been here before, haven't you? 2 friends, you helpless, me having the time of my life. But you thought this time would be different. You and your special leg.
The bishop laughs long past the point of humor.
I'm not dead yet.
The hero says, staring at the ground.
But you know what's coming, and that's even better. So, same choice as last time. Do you do it, or do I?
The bishop slowly draws out the sentence as his rictus grin spreads further than humanly possible.
The same answer as last time. Go fuck yourself, with a side order of you better kill me, you wood boot horse meat eating tulip fucker.
The hero says, his gaze never leaving the floor.
Thought you would have learned by now. Very well. But you get to watch.
The bishop says as the giant malignant walks behind the hero. It yanks his head upwards and with 2 massive fingers pulls back the hero's eyelids until drops of blood start to drip from the torn sides. The bishop starts to chant in a language that speaks to that eldritch, unnatural part of me as he walks to stand in front of the hero, one of the twins on either side. As he begins to chant louder, I can see horrific, bulbous forms start to strain from within the twin's stomach. They double over, but are held aloft via forces I cannot see. The twins' bones start to snap and deform, creating spines, hooks, and horns. The men are crying at this point, and amazingly, still try to apologize to the hero. Their fluids pool on the floor and start to run in rivets to form twisting, looping symbols that beg me to join in the slaughter. As his chant reaches a crescendo, the bishop rams his hands down the throat of the twins. Jaws buckling, throats tearing, eyes straining to stay in deformed skulls. He yanks his hands backwards, and in a spray of gore and gray swelling mist, both men are violently turned inside out. Their bodies hit the ground with the wet thump of dead flesh. But not for long. Slowly, the twins rise, reborn of horrors of raw muscle and bone shards, leather organs wrapped around them like armor. Their eyes, though, they retain a scared, panic-stricken look.
Same as before, choir boy. You couldn't do it, so I did. And now, not only did you lose 2 friends, I got 2 friends.
The bishop says as the twins move behind him. The massive cherubic malignant lets the hero's head fall. I hear nothing, but I see tears falling as freely as the blood hits the floor. I realize at this point, one of the twins is looking directly at the vent I'm hiding in. I have no idea if it saw me, or could communicate this fact if it did, but I scuttle as fast as possible back to the attic. I'm in no rush to find out. And that leaves me here, a couple days later, with the building anxiety that this happy group kicking in the attic door. A lot to digest, I know, but what do you think? Should I accept my fate to be a killing machine, or should I spit in the face of cold reason? And do I check out this flea market? How much can I trust Kaz? In case anyone is wondering, I'm typing this from the security of the attic with my very first smartphone. Well, it's not mine per se, but it's mine now. That's what's important. Maybe being a bit more relaxed will help me relate myself a bit better. I'd be a fan of that. The past few days, even by my standards, have been just odd and violent, but that part goes without saying. Looks like more and more people are trying to help me out. Much appreciated, as always. Here's a little feedback for you, and a couple of questions. First off, why does everyone seem to know more about this flea market than I do? I'd have thought getting these things firsthand from something that looked like Pumpkinhead's church-going cousin would have put me at an advantage, but you guys seem to know what's up better than I do. I'm going to hazard a guess that it has something to do with the fact that there is certain information I just can't see. That same Vantablack that blocks my travels censors out all kinds of things. I'd tell you what, but the worst part of censorship is, Doesn't seem to work with secondhand info though, not yet anyway. I'm chalking that up to my creator's community college level sorcery skills, so please, if you know something I don't, pass it on. Second, you guys seem to have pretty high hopes for my morals. I expected a group of random folks to be telling me to slaughter the neighborhood with a hero's skull for shits and giggles. But it seems things have gotten a little less edgy since the 90s. Probably not a bad thing. Lastly, you guys seem to think Kaz can help me out quite a bit. Gotta say, he did seem like fear incarnate. I'll keep that in mind. If I missed you, it's probably because I took your advice, and I'll be getting to it in a minute. The headline of the past couple weeks is the entire goon squad piling into their literal hearse and taking off. The bishop seemed to have packed a couple suitcases, so I assumed I was going to have a few days at least. But to play it safe, I spent the first day in the attic. I'm still nervous about the glance the twin and I exchanged, and not about to get caught in a trap invented by paranoid parents. A little after 1 on the second night, I hear what I initially think is the bishop and the 3 pawns. Better name? Worse? But as I focus, I hear 5 voices whispering, and most certainly sounding nothing like what stalks the night with any degree of real skill. A window breaks, and I smell it. I know most of you think of me as a good guy. I mean, I'm pretty sure someone is working on making a plushie or a body pillow of me as we speak. I have so many questions about fads in 2020. But there are going to be times you get a deep, uncomfortable look into the vile crap hastily sewn together that is me. This is one of those times. What I smelled was innocence, and with it, I gained an understanding, a look into what my base drive is. I'd love to say I didn't like it, to say what I felt was a vile compulsion, but the truth is, that's not how it feels. It's exciting, it's primal, and on a very real level, it feeds me. With that first whiff, I understood innocence. It's not perfect or young, chaste or naive. It's complicated, of course, but at its core, it does things for the right reason. Having that spark of human kindness, loyalty, and selflessness, even among flaws that may appear irredeemable to some. 2 of those men had it. 3 of those men were acceptable collateral damage. Nothing in me, meat, cloth, or magic feels any differently. I respect you all too much to lie. I start to salivate, the fluid pulling and dripping out of the bottom of the ceramic head. I feel power. I feel confidence. It's dark. It's my house. And they are not demons or heroes, just meat. I can feel my body twitch and thrum like a guitar string as they come into the house one by one. They split up, trying to ransack the place as quickly as they can. I laugh, a clicking, phlegmatic sound I find myself hoping they can hear as I run toward a vent, jumping down into it with no regard for the minor noise I make. In fact, I extend one blade and drag it along the duct. As they hear the sound, I can feel their fear. I can feel where they are, like a hellish radar. The closest to me has no innocence in him. I smell crimes committed for pure greed and rage. That doesn't matter though. I need to warm up. I've spent so much time sneaking and cowering. I need to see what I can do. I settle myself enough to open the vent without attracting attention. The large mask-wearing man rifles through drawers, looking frustrated as he finds nothing better than a 25-year-old computer errata. My limbs move almost on their own accord. I climb with a spider's grace directly above the man. There would have been a million ways to drop on him and kill him in an instant, but my mind went to none of those. Instead, I let the ceramic headpiece unfold. Thick, red-gray saliva hits the top of his mask. He jumps and turns towards the ceiling, shining a high-powered flashlight in my face. it doesn't matter. I know exactly where he is, and I get a giddy charge from the burst of fear that runs through his body as he sees my face. I let go and extend both of my blades. Nothing to hack down a demon, but stout and sharp enough to slide easily through the man's eyes, the sockets behind them, and propelled by my momentum, the brain behind that. He makes no noise, but both of our bodies hitting the floor most certainly does. I rip my arms, shoulder deep in gore, out of his head and take a moment to admire the spewing cavern of his face. I hear another man come running, another empty snack, but I'm more than eager to whet my appetite. I run to the door and place my back to the wall beside it. The second man, a wiry guy in his 40s wearing no mask but a mustache that would have been Coleman 93, walks by me and screams as he sees his compatriot. I walk behind him and drive both blade tips down into his Achilles tendons. Putting all my weight and strength into it, I tear upward, the blades catching flesh, tendon, and fat, tearing them out as a formless lump. He hits the ground, wailing in terror and pain. I can hear one of the group immediately leave his compatriots. I'm angered as I feel it was one of the innocent. I take this out on the thief, screaming on the ground. I climb on his body facing the door. I'm stunned at how easily these instincts come to me, and at how much I'm loving this. He tries to see what is on his back, but he has no leverage to throw me off. I vent my rage by stabbing randomly, almost playfully up and down his torso. By the time the last two enter, he isn't dead, but he isn't coming back. I stare at the men as I petulantly stab a last 3 times. Shut the headpiece with a snap, and leap with greased eel speed into a floor vent. They scream at the situation, at each other, at their dying friend, and I hear the telltale noise of a gun cocking. I'm not scared, it makes me laugh. I let the sound echo through the vents as I move randomly, stroking their fear, their paranoia. I stop and watch them back down the hallway from a ceiling vent. I pant with anticipation as I confirm the innocent has the gun. I scrape the knife, hurting them to the top of the stairs. The gun-toting buffet fires randomly, coming nowhere close to hitting me. I move to a vent between the two, letting the silence ring, letting them ramble possible plans and explanations to each other. I drop, putting them between myself and the stairs. With no room to aim and nerves frayed thin, the innocent man, a 23-year-old single father, working 2 jobs and doing this under duress, fires rapidly and poorly. Soup can-sized chunks blow out of his friend's back as the bullets exit. I do nothing to speed the man's fate. I stand in the hallway letting the young man's shock and fear marinate his coming pain. He sees me and fires his 2 remaining shots, doing nothing more than sending harmless sprays of hardwood into my mask. He is stunned, but not enough to avoid making a break for it when I start a slow walk towards him, scraping one blade along my ceramic head, making a hellish screech. He stumbles down the stairs and I leap. I overestimate my ability and land, grabbing his waist from behind as opposed to his head. I jam my blade into the side of his leg with the rapidity of a sewing machine, and as the steel buries itself into his flesh, I feel it, the pain of the innocent. I don't know if I'll be able to explain this in any way that makes sense, but I'll try. You know that false rush of strength and bravado you hear cocaine users rant about? That high that makes you feel like you could fight and fuck all night? Like both at the same time? Think of that, but instead of false promises, you were actually stronger, faster, smarter, instead of a twitchy loser who isn't making sense and can't get it up. I roar. A sound like a rock tumbler with strep throat. He tries to grab me and throw me off, but I retract a blade and grab his hand, easily twisting the wrist to a degree the man falls to the floor. Nothing I could do before the kick start. He tries to slam me into the ground, but I drive my legs into his back, briefly lifting him up as I move both of my hands perpendicular to the ground, parallel to my legs. I let my legs drop to the ground. The man's body falls, driving my blades through his chest. He looks to them, screaming as I find myself with the strength to throw him off of me. I don't want to sugarcoat things, but I don't want to subject you guys to too much of this shit either. The next 10 minutes I spent with my head unfolded eating chunks of the guy, till the life finally bled from him. When the frenzy burned itself out, it was my turn to be startled. Standing in the kitchen door, leaning against the frame, holding a pistol and the phone I'm typing this on, was the hero. He didn't blink. The gun didn't waver. He simply threw the cell phone to me. It was open to a blank screen with a flashing cursor.
You have about 10 seconds to tell me something that makes me not shoot you to feel better about myself. You only get that because I know you aren't working with the squarehead.
He says. I'll spare you the part where I catch him up via the notepad. It was tense, to the point where a shot was fired. But at the end of it all, we realized, regardless of who was lying about what, we both needed a hand. We dragged the bodies down the stairs, mostly me, for obvious leg-related reasons. I find myself, now, a lot stronger than your average person, but I can feel that power draining by the second. By my guess, it'll be burned out within a day, not the buff I was expecting.
I'll take care of these. That salted licorice prick isn't the only one who knows how to use that microwave. Listen, I'm gonna call you Punch. That alright?
The hero says, taking a seat in his gore-streaked chair. As I look around the room, they did leave him 3 buckets. One contained waste, the other a pile of what was hopefully animal offal, and the third, water that wasn't much more clear than my spit.
Okay, Punch. I've been burned by supernatural shit before, but what choice do I have? You ever seen The Godfather?
He asks. I nod. He hands me the pistol, a large boxy black thing.
Then you know what to do. I don't know how long we have, but if you are planning on going to the flea market, do it soon. Once it's go time, I'll let you know. And one more thing. If you have any ability to get me a burger, maybe a soda, I can honestly say I'll forgive the slaughter up there.
He tries to be jovial, but we are both beyond that. I scavenge the cash, cell phones, and 2 more pistols from the bodies, hoping it will be enough to trade for something useful. The next night, once dark fell, I quickly looked up the address on the card, with some help from the hero. His name was Leonard for all those wondering, and started towards it. From a distance, I saw nothing but a vacant lot across from the flea market, which made me start thinking maybe Leo didn't know how to work the phone as well as he claimed, and my destination was on the other side of the street. But as I got within a block of the lot, suddenly there was a building too tall to be held up by brick and mortar. Bricks of all types haphazardly put together, and windows ranging from idyllic home to prison, studding it randomly. Dominating the front of the building was a giant LED sign flashing flea market in erratic patterns. I make my way to a massive tinted glass door that I'm unsure I can move as the last of the innocent wore off sooner than I expected. But as I walk up, a smaller door, sized perfectly for me, appeared. This one I opened with ease. As I walked in, I suddenly felt very normal and mundane. Creatures, entities, ghosts, demons, whatever you could think of, it was walking the shoddy-looking aisles, browsing, chatting, and bargaining. Dozens of languages no humans have ever spoke, blended together with hundreds they have into a cacophonic den that threatened to drown out my thoughts. The air hung thick with the sweet smoke, lights flashed, loudspeakers screamed deals. I saw signs for weapons, food, goods, anything I could think of. But I saw something else even more important.
Kaz, over here!
I scream, seeing the Candyman a few dozen feet away. For a moment, I think I have no chance of attracting his attention. But eventually, he turns around and seems to laugh and shake his head as he walks over. He takes us into a moderately more quiet part of the flea market. All kinds of entities sit along the tables, eating and conversing. We sit beside a group of purple, wicked-looking things eating thin strands of fluorescent foodstuffs with fingers that looked like the fronds of an anglerfish.
You little madman. You are actually going through with this. Do you even know where to go? What are you buying?
He asked curiously.
I'm a genius, so I'll go to weapons and get a weapon.
I say sarcastically.
How many weapons do you think are made for little fellas like yourself? No, you need an adult. I'll show you where you can make your bad decision.
I'd be more angry at Kaz's condescension if he wasn't right. He walks me for what feels like hours to what looks like the most run-down junk shop of a stall in this place. The painted sign on wood that looks as if it was salvaged from the Titanic says, "Flap and Hive, the oddest odds and ends." Behind the junk-laden counter stood a massive bird-like beast. It was a deep, rotten orange that reminded me of a tangerine left in a gutter. Its beak was a harsh, unnatural yellow. Its eyes, much too large for its head, sat exposed and rolling about their own accord on the top of its head. It was 7 feet of nightmare fuel dredged from childhood memories. I almost mistook the second entity for a piece of junk, but who am I to judge? It was a knockoff Stretch Man toy, wearing a black unitard, bloated beyond reason. It stands up and vermin scuttle from the tears of its latex body.
Flapping Hive?
I try to start things off on the right foot.
We got a homunculus here, Hive. Speak slowly and don't use big words.
The bird says.
That's how I have to talk to you. But this is a customer. How can I help you? Ignore my friend. He seems to think his shining personality pays our rent.
Hive says. I tell him my situation. Hive seems to take a special interest when I mention the malignant. He scrounged around the junk and brings out 2 items. One is a green glass eye, about sized for a doll. The other looks like a keychain with a small decorative sword on it.
This eye, it'll let you go unnoticed. Not shimmering outline invisible, but unseen, unheard, and unnoticed by any sense anything has. This keychain, if you can get a malignant to touch it, I can guarantee it won't be bothering you anymore.
There are some letters on the side of the sword. Batter. I open my bag of cash, guns, and phones to a massive laugh from Flap.
Shoot yourself with one of those guns, and if you survive, take that money, buy a dildo, and go fuck yourself. Get out of my shop.
Flap says dismissively. There's a moment of pregnant silence before Hive stretches out a limb faster than a cobra, and despite his 5-pound size, the blow sends the bird crashing to the ground. It gets up, chagrined but amazingly not hurt.
That'll be fine. My kind have been nothing but especially cruel to me. But I'm very limited in how I can exact my revenge. If you can put a scratch on any of them, that makes up for any loss of finance. Though, there is one thing you are not going to enjoy. This eye is a part. It has to be installed.
Hive says before leading me back into the shop. The room looks like a cross between a wood shop and a surgical theater. I'm strapped, completely immobile on a dark wood table. Hive brings out a tool that radiates an energy that puts anything I've felt to shame. He opens my head and begins to slice, flinch, and form the flesh underneath. The pain was worse than anything I thought possible. Worse than the trauma to the meat that makes up my internals. The tool works on a level that is beyond the physical, tearing parts of my very essence to connect with the jade eye he implants in what could generously be considered my forehead. When I get off the table, I do what Hive tells me, focusing on the eye. I see and feel myself becoming nothing more than the whisper of an idea of a form on the material plane. I make my way home, casually, doing everything I could to try and get noticed, to no avail. And that is where we are, a handful of shaky alliances, a surgery I hope has no side effects, and a keychain I've been assured kills demons. As always, I ask you guys, what do you think? I've got so many plates spinning right now, I can only hope I'm making the right choices. Before I go, I want to apologize to the people that have been cheering for me. I could have just omitted the details, but you guys deserve better than that. You should know who you're helping. For all you know, it could be your future house I'm living in. Thank you all so much for being here. I know you're all loving the story just as much as I am. Swamp, Dom, Somber, T, Taturian, thank you all so much for joining me on this amazing story. Be sure to check the description for all links and socials for everyone involved. Show them some love. Be sure you all come back for the finale next week. My favorite narrator returns to lend her voice. Lady Nopingham. But until next time, remember, just because you didn't see it, doesn't mean it wasn't watching you.